Picture this. It's a Tuesday afternoon. Nothing special about the day. You're going about your normal routine when your phone buzzes with a notification from your car insurance app. There's a problem with your vehicle. You take it to the mechanic. He comes back 20 minutes later with that look on his face, the one that means bad news, and tells you the repair is going to cost $480. Now here's where the story splits into two very different experiences of the exact same moment. Person A hears that number and feels their stomach drop. Their mind immediately starts running calculations. Which bill can wait? Can I put this on the card? Will I have enough for groceries this week? The rest of the day is spent in a low-grade state of panic, distracted at work, snapping at people they love, lying awake at 2 and running numbers that don't quite add up. Person B hears the exact same number, $480, pauses for about 3 seconds and says, "Okay, fine." They pay it. They go home. They have dinner. They sleep fine. Same income, same unexpected expense, completely different psychological experience. The only difference between person A and person B in this story isn't their salary. It isn't their financial intelligence. It isn't even their discipline or their habits. It's $500 sitting in a separate account that person B almost never thinks about. And what that $500 does to the human brain, not to a bank balance, but to the actual neurological experience of daily life, is one of the most underrated and underexplained ideas in all of personal finance. Here's the way most people think about an emergency fund. It's a backup, a financial safety net, money you keep around just in case something goes wrong. The logic is simple. You save some money, something bad happens, you use the money, problem solved. It's basically a buffer against bad luck. And that understanding isn't wrong, but it's massively incomplete. Because it treats the emergency fund as a purely financial tool, something that affects your bank account when things go sideways. And when people think of it that way, it immediately starts to feel less urgent. After all, if nothing goes wrong, and most months nothing does, the money just sits there doing nothing. It doesn't earn much. It doesn't grow like an investment. It just waits. So people deprioritize it. They tell themselves they'll build it eventually. They'll get around to it when things are less tight. Right now there are other things to deal with, bills, rent, maybe some debt to pay off. The emergency fund can wait. And this is the mistake. Not because bad things are guaranteed to happen, but because the emergency fund isn't actually waiting for something to go wrong. It's working right now, today, on a Tuesday when everything is completely fine. It's working inside your brain. To understand what's actually happening, we need to talk about something called financial anxiety, and more specifically, the chronic low-level version of it that most people carry around without even recognizing it as anxiety at all. Think about how most people without any financial buffer actually experience money on a day-to-day basis. Every unexpected notification feels like a potential threat. Every time the car makes an unfamiliar sound, there's a small spike of dread. Every medical appointment carries an undercurrent of financial worry. Every social invitation, dinner, a trip, a birthday, gets filtered through an invisible calculation of whether the money will work out. Most people who live without a financial cushion don't describe themselves as anxious. They describe themselves as careful, realistic, responsible. They've simply adapted to a state of constant low-level financial vigilance, a permanent background awareness that any unexpected expense could destabilize everything. And here's what's psychologically important about that state. The human nervous system cannot tell the difference between a real threat and an anticipated threat. When your brain perceives a potential danger, even a financial one, even a relatively small one, it activates the same stress response systems that evolved to protect you from physical danger. Cortisol rises, attention narrows, decision-making shifts from long-term to short-term. The brain essentially enters a mild version of survival mode, optimizing for the immediate problem rather than the broader picture. Now multiply that by every day of every week of every month of a life lived without any financial buffer. The result isn't dramatic. It doesn't feel like a crisis. It just feels like the background texture of adult life, slightly tense, slightly reactive, slightly less able to think clearly about anything beyond the next few weeks. This is what researchers sometimes call the cognitive tax of financial scarcity, and the evidence for it is genuinely striking. Studies have shown that people experiencing financial stress perform measurably worse on cognitive tests, not because they're less intelligent, but because a significant portion of their mental bandwidth is constantly occupied by financial vigilance. Managing scarcity consumes mental resources, and mental resources are finite. Now here's what changes when $500 appears in a separate account labeled Emergency Fund. Not $5,000, not a fully funded 6-month cushion, just $500. The brain receives a signal, a quiet but powerful signal that says the next small thing that goes wrong is already handled. The car repair, the medical copay, the broken appliance, the unexpected bill, these are no longer threats. They're inconveniences. And that reclassification, from threat to inconvenience, triggers a measurable shift in how the nervous system operates. Cortisol drops slightly. The background vigilance softens. Mental bandwidth that was being consumed by financial threat monitoring becomes available for other things. You don't notice it dramatically. It's not like a switch flips and suddenly life feels perfect. It's more like a hum you didn't know was there stops, and in the quiet, you realize how much mental energy that hum had been consuming. Here's the deeper idea that most financial advice completely misses. The purpose of a small emergency fund isn't to solve large financial problems. It's to change the psychological category that small problems belong to. Think about what actually derails most people's financial progress. It's rarely one catastrophic event. It's the steady accumulation of small, unexpected expenses that chip away at every attempt to save, invest, or build momentum. The $300 repair, the $200 medical bill, the $150 appliance fix, each one individually is manageable. But without a buffer, each one gets paid for by raiding whatever small amount was beginning to accumulate elsewhere. The beginning of a savings habit, the first small investment, the progress toward a financial goal. And beyond the financial interruption, there's a psychological one. Each unexpected expense without a buffer reinforces a subconscious narrative. A story the brain tells itself quietly. I can't get ahead. Every time I start to make progress, something comes along and takes it away. Saving is pointless because it never lasts. That narrative is one of the most financially destructive forces a person can carry. Not because it's about money, but because it shapes behavior. People who believe saving is futile don't save. People who believe financial progress is always temporary don't build momentum. The belief creates the reality it predicts. A $500 emergency fund interrupts that narrative. The first time something unexpected happens and the emergency fund absorbs it, and daily life continues without financial disruption, something shifts psychologically. The brain receives new evidence that buffers work, that financial stability, even in a small form, is real and achievable and protective. That single experience of something went wrong and I was okay is worth more in terms of long-term financial behavior change than almost any piece of financial advice ever given. Because it doesn't just teach a concept. It creates a felt experience of financial resilience. And felt experiences change behavior in ways that intellectual understanding rarely does. So what does this mean for where you are right now? First, if you don't have a $500 emergency fund yet, make it the only financial priority until you do. Not debt payoff, not investing, not anything else. Just $500 in a separate account that you label clearly and don't touch for anything that isn't a genuine unexpected expense. The reason this comes before everything else, including debt payoff, which many financial plans prioritize, is that without this buffer, every financial plan is fragile. Every savings attempt is one unexpected expense away from collapse. The $500 is the foundation that makes everything else possible. You build on sand without it. Second, keep it separate and slightly inconvenient to access. Not in your main spending account where it blends in and feels available. In a separate account, ideally at a different bank, where accessing it requires a small intentional action. The slight friction matters. It prevents the fund from getting quietly absorbed into regular spending while still being accessible when something real happens. Third, when you use it, replenish it before doing anything else financially. The power of the emergency fund isn't in having it once. It's in having it consistently. Every month that your buffer is intact is another month your nervous system operates in the lower stress mode that makes better financial decisions possible. And finally, recognize what building this fund actually is. It's not just saving $500. It's purchasing a measurable improvement in your daily cognitive experience. It's buying back mental bandwidth. It's converting a category of life events from financial threats into manageable inconveniences. That is genuinely valuable, and it happens long before any emergency ever occurs. Here's what I want you to take away from this. The $500 emergency fund is not a small, beginner step that you graduate beyond on the way to real financial goals. It is a real financial goal. It's the foundation of a nervous system that can think clearly about money. It's the thing that makes every other financial habit more likely to stick. Person B from the beginning of this video, the one who heard $480 repair and said, okay, fine, didn't get there because they earn more. They got there because at some point, probably on an ordinary day when nothing was going wrong, they put $500 in a separate account and left it there. And the Tuesday that followed, and the Tuesday after that, and every Tuesday between then and the day the car broke down, their brain was operating slightly more freely, slightly more clearly, with slightly more bandwidth available for the decisions that actually build a financial life. That's what $500 does. Not when you need it. Right now, today, on a completely ordinary Tuesday when everything is fine. If this shifted how you think about emergency funds, the next video goes deeper into exactly how financial scarcity changes decision-making, and the specific steps to break the cycle even when money feels impossibly tight.